So that was maybe something that I need to work on in depth maybe and study even more. But I love to share it today because I've tried it and it worked. Hopefully it works with your Ibrahim's.
Yes, exactly.
That's what he said. Ibrahim, my student, 5 years ago, making that beautiful grammar mistakes. He was so full of himself, thinking that, he's very confident and he's got some superpowers, and he was telling me and the classmates that I believe in myself. I know I can do more than you guys can expect. I am the leader, I can fly. I was, of course, very happy with Ibrahim that he was doing so, and so full of himself. I was happy that he was having fun. But of course I wasn't very happy with that. So,
You think that's it?
Thank you so much, that's a very good question. No, he kept making those mistakes.
Oh.
And by the way, Ibrahim was on the intermediate level. He knows all about sample present, past simple, advanced grammar structures. He knows all about them. When I say he knows, I mean he can tell you when can I use this and what does that mean. He can write the grammar structures in sentences. So it's not difficult for him to maybe process the meaning, or he knows all about the basics. But Ibrahim had another problem. Once I asked Ibrahim to speak. This happens. So I was of course happy for Ibrahim and his friends that they were having fun in my class and speaking, and it was pretty fun. Very fun. I mean literally fun. A lot of them. A lot of them.
This is everybody or like the whole group?
No, I wouldn't say that. The problem would be with the teacher then. No, not the whole group, but I would say specifically Ibrahim. I was keen on Ibrahim because Ibrahim was, very excited to learn, and he had, all the hopes and passion to travel to Canada one day. You know what I'm maybe trying to say. So he had hopes not only in his profession, but also in his high language level. But this happened. So as a teacher, by the end of each and every class, on the board, we put maybe the words and the grammar structures, and also the words that we mispronounced, the words that we did not choose very well. And I invite my students, okay guys, so let's think about the grammar mistakes. Ibrahim kept studying and attending my classes and going through the error correction process for 6 months. And he's still on the intermediate level. I didn't have the justification just to let Ibrahim know, okay Ibrahim, now you're native like. I didn't have the courage to say so. And I had my reasons. So, Ibrahim kept questioning. That was very difficult to understand for both of the teacher and the student, because I was quite novice that time. I did not understand the nature of those mistakes. So those mistakes, kept happening over and over again, and made the very proud teacher who I used to be. I was very proud with the conversations. Quite dead inside. This is happening every time. And, this is something maybe I'm getting a bit frank about it. I started thinking of my teaching that is not very effective. Do I have to teach all of that again? Why do my students have those mistakes? If my teaching is very ineffective this way, how do they correct the mistakes when I put them on the board by the end of the class? Sorry, it didn't make sense. And again, I was quite novice, so what was that? So that was the impact of those mistakes on me as a teacher. I was frustrated. Ibrahim, the very eager student who was always happy to speak and participate, became less eager, very frustrated, quite anxious. So that was something that I think, okay, we've got to stop here and think about, what is this? I kept thinking about it, but it was inside me. I didn't talk to my supervisor, didn't talk to anyone, I didn't talk to the students themselves. And one day, Ibrahim just said, hold on. I've been studying for almost now 6 or 7 months. I've been on the intermediate level. I keep making the same grammar mistakes. By the way, I know I'm able to correct them. Once you write those mistakes, you give them to me, I can correct the mistakes. But while I'm speaking, I never know that I made a mistake. Is there something wrong with you, teacher? So he started accusing me of being not a very good teacher. And you know what? I had tendency to believe him. So that was the sad part about it. I started, doubting, and maybe somehow I was quite uncertain about, again, my teaching quality. So I had to search, I had to find a clear answer for those types of mistakes. Does anyone have a name for those mistakes? What do we call them?
Errors.
Errors, yeah.
Fossilized.
Thank you so much. Fossilized error. So I searched and I found out that those are called fossilized error. When we search the word fossil, okay, what does it mean in English away from teaching?
Rooted.
Yeah, you're saying rooted. Okay, very good one.
What was below the heading under the ground and the king over?
Yes, thank you. Hello. Yeah, that's true. And those mistakes are carved. They are carved, literally carved in your student's brain. The word was very frightening for me. Fossilized? Fossilized? What does that even mean? So, I needed to understand what fossilized error literally mean in the English language. So I searched the definition and I found it. Fossilization in English, it means it's a process that sometimes occurs in which incorrect linguistic features become permanent. Part of the way you write, it's a part of the way you write or speak. And it's permanent. I cannot tell him so. He wants to travel. I cannot tell him, okay, you need to forget about ILACE. Just forget. No, I can't tell him so. And I was so frustrated when I knew that these are fossilized errors. They are permanent. They are carved. They are built in, the system that the students use. So that was, very frustrating. So I kept searching and I found this also, and that was even more frustrating. Seneca in 1972 said, most L2 learners, the second language learners, most of them, which was very scary, quite inspiring, failed to reach target language competence. That is, they stop learning while their internalized rule system contains rules different from those of the target system. This is referred to as fossilization. In other words, the system that they are relying on to speak English is not English. That's what the students say when the students say, we think in Arabic. I need to translate. So they put it in other words, that's the same thing. So knowing all about grammar, learning vocabulary, attending pronunciation classes doesn't make you able to speak. Because your style, your language exposure is just in Arabic. You think it in Arabic. Your dreams are in Arabic. Can be everything in English. So, the last 3 lines were a nightmare. It remains a controversial construct with some researchers arguing that there is never a complete cessation of learning. I had to Google cessation. I didn't understand what was the cessation. So the cessation is the stopping. Learning does not stop. Ibrahim is about to finish his bundle with the center, so he's got to leave. I can never tell Ibrahim, well, man, you've got to pay for another year. I can't do this. So that was a research study. So it's even more complicated and even more sophisticated, and it's built on statistics, numbers, And it's telling me this frightening conclusion. For me as a teacher who's trying to make the students excel and improve their speaking skill, how can I treat them this way? I felt, somehow dishonest. So there is something that I need to do. There is something that I need to learn. There is something maybe that I need to come up with. I was, quite frustrated. And again, Ibrahim asked me the question like, why those mistakes? What's wrong with you? I need to change the teacher. You're not a good teacher. I've been studying for so long. And okay, Ibrahim, I have nothing to say. But I've got something to ask you. What do you guys think? Why do they happen? I wanted to do this because if I had a large number, but alhamdulillah, I didn't have a very large number. So what do you think as educators? Why do these mistakes happen? Any ideas?
Perhaps when they were children at school, they started to make them and more corrected them, and then they kept repeating them until they became part of the language system.
So you're saying the repetition of the mistake itself?
Yes.
And it's never been corrected?
Yeah.
Good.
They thought that this is...
well, you mean we learned something wrong?
Unconscious, this is him when he speaks English.
Okay. So I would say that's a poor teaching experience, or poor learning experience.
Yeah.
Good. Any other reasons? It's a part of the reasons. I had to find the reasons why my students make those mistakes in order to find solutions. So, we've got 4. The 4 reasons are not just, the old reasons we have for language utilization. There are other reasons out there, but the 4 are the reasons that I have seen very clear and vivid in my students. The first one, that's the good old lack of practice. By saying lack of practice here, that's what I was saying a few minutes ago. Learning grammar, vocabulary, pronunciation doesn't make you speak the language. So you've got to try it out in a social, communicative context. So as Mr. Samek said, at our schools, we never have an opportunity to make the students speak and communicate. So they start communicating when they grow, when they become very old, I would say, for learning. It is something new. So basically, lack of practice since they were children.
But I think the problem is that they might be practicing but without having someone to correct them.
That's another
one. Really know.
So lack of practice quality.
Yeah.
I agree. The second reason is the subconscious attachment to L1. They're translating, literally. So they've got to put the text in Arabic, the idea in Arabic, especially with the unfamiliar topics. Something they've never talked about before. Talk about climate change. Ibrahim talks about climate change? What is climate change? When we've got summer, winter, that's the climate change. It changes over there. So the core ideas has never been, exposed to something like this. So I've got to think it in Arabic, think about it in Arabic. So this is real attachment to the vocabulary. Even the very famous mistake, to do a mistake, this is so much relying on Arabic. Do a mistake. Why do I need to make it? Make a cake, make a cup of tea, make a mistake. Why? So they question the collocation in Arabic. Another reason, the inconfidence and the traumatic past experiences. And I have a very clear example here, the very clear and very eminent example, I'd say, my mom. She's been traumatized. I've been heavily gifted maybe with learning languages because I inherited this from my dad. He's a linguist, he loves the English, Arabic. He teaches Arabic, he's not a very good teacher by the way, but he teaches Arabic. And my mom used to tell me that many years ago, she's got a language teacher, and that language teacher made fun of her, one of her utterances. She mispronounced something, and then he made fun of her. She wasn't linguistically gifted. English wasn't her favorite thing to learn. So, it's one of the intelligences if you learn languages. She didn't have it. Anyway, that teacher made fun of her based on that traumatic experience that happened many years ago. She had emotional attachment that English language causes me embarrassment and inconfidence forever. That happened many years ago. She doesn't even, justify it. She doesn't even think about it. It became, one of the things that she believes in. It's not even questionable. English is the English. So traumatic experiences, and that's maybe for the educators, when you think about it, trauma, do I have to deal with traumatic experiences? How would I do this? I just studied grammar, vocabulary, traumas? Okay. The last thing, and that was my area of research today, it's the analysis of the feedback. Let's break it down. The last thing that happens in class is some errors on the board. Students are happily gathering, correcting the mistakes. They go home, they do the homework, they come back, in another lead-in, I ask them, how was your day? Are you very happy? I'm sorry, on the intermediate level, do you just forget all about verb to be? What did you do yesterday? I was go, sometimes I went, you know, it happens, sometimes it doesn't happen, let's see. So, where is the missing part? We corrected the mistakes. You went home. You studied. You did the homework. You come back with another bunch of mistakes. I did not understand the nature of fossilized errors back then also. That's why I had to contemplate the nature of those grammar mistakes or vocabulary or pronunciation. Finding out about the name, the terminology, that it's called fossilized errors, and they are permanent, and you will never get tired of them, wasn't enough for me. Because, seriously, I need to find the solution. I need my students to feel better about their English language. So I went back to the internet, Google, and I searched when somebody is learning cooking, driving, a second language. How does learning happen? How do you acquire a skill, even if it's not English? That is true, but the practice doesn't happen, at the same level. It happens around 4 different stages. So that's what we call the learning approach or the learning theory. When you are maybe a novice, beginner, absolute beginner, learning something new, you start with this. Ibrahim wants to travel to Canada. He goes to the British Council, to the ABC, take my money and make me speak the language. I need to learn to speak. I need conversation. Absolute beginner, conversation. So the teacher working on the placement test or the diagnostic test, what is he talking about? He doesn't even know what's a cat. So that is the first stage, unconscious. You don't know what you don't know. Seriously, you have no idea what English is. So you're asking for a conversation and you don't know even the basics. And absolutely, you're incompetent of the grammar, you're not incompetent. After 6 months, attending, doing homework, you move to the second stage. You became conscious. You know what you don't know. So now there is some sort of enlightenment. I wasn't very smart asking for conversation 6 months ago. I need to learn a lot of vocabulary. I need to learn a lot of grammar. I still do not really understand grammar and, what is present perfect now? What is it present or past? So you don't know what you don't know. And you are still incompetent, which means you're not able to use the language accurately. I would say after, if I cannot give a specific number because it takes time based on the age and the interest and the motivation. So after some time, you move to this stage. You know the language, you know the system, you know how to use it, and you are competent. You are accurately using them. However, look at the description. Only with I swear to God, on my intermediate classes, I've seen 40 and I would say 30 and 50-year-old men and women sweating because they speak in English. It's a cognitive load. It's burden. It doesn't feel like a piece of cake. No, it's a lot of work. So they start making those pauses they start making the fossilized mistakes, repeating them. On that stage, and of course the yellow part, but I mean the green part, that's the advanced part of making, being conscious and competent at the same time, making errors. And here you feel like I'm so much near to the native-like, but it's so unreachable. You feel like there is a glass door between you and the dream, the vision of who you want to become, speaking the language. So that green area where Ibrahim and most of his friends stayed, and that's the green area that made me think about the frustration. Finally, after some time, nobody knows. You can reach this stage when you can use the language automatically and it's in your DNA now. You don't think about it. Now you have your dreams and nightmares in English. Now you can just use it as if it's a tissue in your pocket, you just get it out. So much easier. So when we look at the last two stages, I always have here aware and accurate. Unaware of the language, I don't think about it. I just use it automatically. And that's the dream and the hope of all, second language learners. My students are here. I want them to be there. What do I need to do? That was the second area that I need to find out. So I know, okay, fossilized poses, efforts. Okay, so I need to move on. How? I need to give you a very clear example because I don't want to miss anyone here. What did you do yesterday? He said. Yesterday I went to the park. I did see animals. I saw animals, and a collection appears. They were cute. That's the area where we are. Intermediate. They do this. Where do you want to become? Or where do you want to be? What did you do yesterday? Well, yesterday I went to the park for the first time. I was extremely happy because I saw the cute animals. We want to do it this way. Is there something that's, I have got to ask Nick, what do I need to do after every correction? Dude, you didn't tell me the whole thing. So, how do I take my students from here to here? From this style to this style? How to bridge the gap?
That's great.
Now it's...
I think that they need to know exactly what is the problem that they are having. It's like
they are having, not me, because
you
guys have.
Like, okay, they correct their mistakes, but there is something psychologically happening to them because they know the mistake and they correct it, but at the same time they still have something here that I need to dig in more. So I need to talk to them. What is making you nervous? What is making you thinking in Arabic first and then English? What is the problem that you're having? He'll start talking to me about the lack of practice, the lack of exposure to the language, because let's face it, we live in our country and we speak
not English speaking.
Yeah, 24/7. So the exposure is really limited. If he is out there, like in UK or whatsoever, he will not make those mistakes.
That's true.
Yeah, because the exposure is like 80% or even more.
So it's practically address it. We're not in Canada, we're not in the US. So
yes, they need to know that this will take time and it will take effort and
a lot of it.
Yeah, from them before me.
Thank you.
Yes, and I need to know if because some of them they do have the confidence and they speak.
Ibrahim.
Yeah,
He said, "I am leaving to fight."
even like I see students, they don't autocorrect, but they have that like level of confidence. Like
yes, I wish I had it.
Yeah, like they just speak.
I wish
I know, I make mistakes. I know, And then
Just mind your business. What's grammar?
I
Grammar is
need
too short.
fluency. I need fluency. I'm not looking after accuracy.
Yes.
So I think they need to focus now. Let's focus on fluency and leave accuracy behind for a bit, and then we can go back to accuracy, like from time to time.
So bridging the gap here, I mean extensive fluency practice.
Not extensive, but I mean from time to time they need to let go. Because in the system, like I have to give them vocab today, I have to give them grammar, and they have to do a control practice. But from time to time I need to tell them today we're not going to learn anything new. We're going to speak about something. Like they need like to design a couple of sessions that's all about speaking about something that we already talked about.
Can you really get into the brains and detach?
There will be something hidden from us forever.
There is always something hidden.
Yeah, but at least like I can have like a questionnaire or something.
Yes.
Like asking them that this happened to you or that.
That's what I believe in. There is always a chance for the teacher to do something.
Yeah.
Thank you so
Well,
much.
I think the question could be like, do they make the same mistake when it comes to control practice when they
No, not to that extent. You know, for example, in that, you know, he said, I maybe was go, and then auto-correction I went. So he realizes the mistake.
Well, like one thing I usually tell my students to do is, let's say that they have a problem with cost-centered math.
Yes.
So you should practice on their own, the way like they have a problem with speaking, how to use grammar correctly. So why don't you record yourself every day to think about what you did yesterday, and then listen to it the next day, because you will not be focused on this.
Thank you.
And then keep practicing, working on this point specifically, and by practicing this will get better.
Thank you. Thank you so much. Thank you so much.
Adam, for them, just like the matter of time. Like, students, they don't understand this, they want to be home like or in only 1 month or 3.
Sorry, yes, keep going.
Yeah, matter of time is so important. They don't understand this.
So the whole participation we had so far, it's all about the student. Have got to do something.
Oh, yeah.
Some teachers don't know this, and some students do not even admit it. I attend the class. Are you asking me to do extra work? I do the homework.
They always say this is your job.
Teaching.
Yeah.
We're not here to blame the guys. Okay. So yeah, bridging the gap. So I started thinking about bridging the gap, and those conclusions were very beautiful, and that's what I came up to. But I needed to, you know, get again very more extremely specific about the reason those mistakes happen. I was so eager on finding the reason. So I started studying the kitchen. So the kitchen, where it's cooked, and here it's served. Why is it cooked differently here? What's wrong with the recipe? The brain. I failed biology several times, you know. I never liked it, but I know. So I know that there are 2 centers in the human brain. One of them is called the hippocampus. Am I saying it right? So the hippocampus, there are some centers that create connections. Those connections are the learning. For example, you learn a grammar structure, and you need to connect this to the meaning. So maybe at the back of your kitchen, the factory, it's been having false wire. The connection is wrong. So sometimes when they say I am believe, it's not just here. It's been connected there, at the back of their minds. The whole learning experience that you've been talking about. So it seems like there is a connection in the brain that causes some false waves. Okay, Ibrahim, you need a surgery. It's not just learning. I need to get your brain opened. That's the smartest Karish surgeon. So it's happening here, in the brains. So the connections in the brain, when they make the mistake, the spoken, the pronunciation, vocabulary, all types of mistakes that are repeated several times on the intermediate and the advanced level, they are never aware of them. They just use the language. They are sort of connections that have been, wired in a very wrong and correct way because of poor learning experience, because of an attempt to autonomously grasp something, but you haven't successfully learned it. Okay, so it got, very specific, and I was like, this is out of my hand. Seriously, you're talking about a connection, wrong waves in the brain? Can I work on this? I can't tell you the level of frustration I had when I realized it's seriously out of my hand, because I believe that learning is powerful and I can change something. When I figured out that there is a stage, there is a barrier that I cannot cross, that was so hard for me as a teacher to grasp and to understand and to admit also. One day, I came across an article and I read about something called neuroplasticity. I'm sorry, this sounds very specific, but I didn't mean, it's getting me. This is how it developed itself. I didn't want this to be this way. The neuroplasticity is when he says, I have been work, wrong connection. The neuroplasticity is saying that the human brain can create new correct connections. So the poor connections, or the false connections, or the wrong connections we had can be fixed, can be worked on. But I haven't studied this at the CELTA. I haven't studied this before. I don't know what's after the error correction class, because it was after the error correction class. So this is learning. Now the brain can create a whole new system, and it can be correct. So the question is, what do I need to do to create the I have been working? How can I add this to the system and say it with effortlessly? It's the self-assessment. I call it the virtue, because can you see the struggles that I've been through to come up to, there is something called self-assessment. And here I started, maybe thinking about what my students don't know, and also what I didn't know before. I didn't know that my students need to know to do something after the class. So the neuroplasticity, or creating new connections, has got stages. It's called the feedback analysis. When they have the error correction on the board, and everyone, of course we don't name them, everyone knows I made that mistake. This is mine. We've got to analyze the feedback. They have got to analyze the feedback. And that's what we need to teach our students. That's what they need to learn. And that's what we need to know. So, first of all, and that's the very basic stage of self-assessment, if they want to improve from the to the, they need to identify. The identification here is all about each and every language learner has got a tendency to make some grammar mistakes, some mispronounced words, some wrong word choices. They don't mess up with the whole grammar. I've got something wrong here. When using present perfect continuous, I always add is before the singular subject, for example, in present sample. They know. So that is the identify stage. They need to know what they have maybe wrong in the system. Yeah, let's say something here. And I created something called the horror notebook. That is your scary notebook, where you keep, your nightmares, where you keep band 5.5. You keep them, you write them, so you know them. Second thing, correct. I want the human brain to admit that there is a mistake. Because if you don't know the mistake, we've got to go to the beginner level, Ibrahim. I'm sorry, you've never been on the intermediate stage. So if you are able to correct the mistake, that's the second stage that the students need to know. The third stage, analysis. They need to come to the conclusion that I have tendency to make grammar mistakes at this area. So the analysis is the student's awareness of the types of mistakes made. 1, 2 can be done in class. Can be done when you study your students' portfolios and that you can help them. But starting from stage 3, the analysis is their job, is their awareness. Are they aware of the grammar mistakes that they usually make?
Sometimes they are.
Thank you.
This is my mistake.
They are smart. Yeah, you know the mistake, but they don't know that they have tendency of it. Those mistakes. Yeah, sometimes they are, linguistically intelligent. So they reach mistakes. Thank you. Yes, that's true. And then written practice. I call it something like a small class, reflective class. If you think about it, you analyze the mistake and you admit it, you know it, then you say, he is play every day. That's a mistake, correct it. He plays every day. Can you give me another sentence that carries the same meaning? Daily routine with the singular subject. So she writes an email every day. He sends me a message every morning. Practice as much as you can. That's a written practice. It hasn't to be. It hasn't maybe the approximate. It hasn't reached the approximate, I would say, benefits at this stage. But it's important to, have it written in front of you visually, seeing it get involved in the grammar structure. Drilling. It's a controversial issue. It's a controversial issue. I seriously read a lot of research. It's been said, like, drilling, when you say, listen, important. Are we doing? He should be proud. He should be proud. So, when you keep drilling and you stress the part, they repeat. It's been said that this is not very helpful. This is mechanical repetition that doesn't help creating anything. But some other studies, which I support, to be honest, are saying that the fossilized mistake, the one that we're trying to get rid of, is a mistake that has been carved because it has been repeated. So repetition has been the reason. You've been repeating that mistake several times, whether you correct it or not. So again, I need to create an alternative structure that is also has been repeated, that has been also said several times, because this is the area, this is the practice that made the mistake. So let's make another correct structure, alternative. So repetition, and there is something very important that we got about repetition. I told my students this. I've been practicing the feedback analysis with my students for 2 years. I teach conversation and I tried it, and it has positive results. That's why I'm sharing it today. I asked them to write in their scary notebook the mistake, correct? I've been working for 10 years. No, I've been working. Yeah, I know, I'm sorry. I've been working. Now you've got to drill it, you've got to repeat it, have to repeat it. I've been working for 8 years. That sort of repetition does not carve the structure in your brain. It's repetitive, monotonous, doesn't make your brain attentive and alert. So intonation and sentence stress has to be there. And that is something that I got to teach to my students. Guys, if you said it in a boring way, of course I wouldn't say repetitive and monotonous and the car, people come. So I've got to tell them, okay guys, if we repeat it, I have been working for 8 years. I've been working for 8 years. I've been working for 8 years. It's interesting. No, let's do it fun. So, I've been working for 8 years. I've been working for 8 years. I have been working for 8 years. Repeat. And I used to convince them. I told them, raise a hand if you can recall a page from a book that you have read before. Why would I do this? No? Raise a hand if you can recall this song. Yeah, in English or America. So what's there? What's about the song that makes it memorable? It's the rhythm.
Yeah, the rhythm.
So I taught them with singing. You're singing the grammar mistakes. Aren't you happy about them? You're practicing. I'm so proud of them. So let's sing them. We sing them. I've been working 8 years. I've been working for 8 years. I've been working for 8 years. They come to the class. asked them, how long have you been working? I've been working for 8 years. Come on. Yeah, I've been working for 8 years. I'm sorry, I've been working for 8 years. It took a few seconds for the brain to send an alarm that there is something wrong. Please fix it. For God's sake. Okay. Oh my God, thank you. That was an excellent error correction. Can't you see yourself progressing? Yeah. But anyway, yeah.
I've been a dream to say to now we ask for something.
So you've got to keep repeating. After 1 or 2 months, how long have you been doing this? Well, I've been doing this. Now, the duration estimated between making the mistake and realizing it is shrinking. And that was very positive. We beat hippocampus. So, drill it in a fun, creative, interesting way that has the rhythm and creates another fossilized, not mistake, correct structure is a solution to beat the fossilized grammar mistakes. Finally, if your students are doing 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 on their own, and there is no chance for them to experience the effectiveness of the drilling, it wouldn't be very, beneficial. So I asked them to collect the scary notebooks, and I take them home. I have a nightmare now. And I keep studying the types of mistakes, okay, and I have a present perfect and present perfect continuous past simple. Let's create social context, communicative context that will maybe, force them to use those structures. And today, we're having fun. Thank you so much. Your notebooks back. Conversation. The context of my conversation will definitely push my students to use those scary notes. Will make them, every time they're like a slap on the face. Wake up! Speaking practice has to be done after the feedback analysis, and you can do it with them. So, 1, 2, your teacher, that teacher's job. 3, 4, 5, a student job. This has to be done on their own. If you drill it, no, they've got to drill it on a daily basis in a very, I would say, interesting, fun way. Number 6 has to be done in class when you ask them to recall what they have done before. I did this in class with Ibrahim and his students. Do you remember the mistake he made at the very beginning?
I believe.
Yeah, I believe
I
it.
believe I can fly.
He said it! He said, I believe. And that was, oh my God, we solved the problem. So that was maybe something that I need to work on in depth, maybe, and study even more. But I love to share it today because I've tried it and it worked. Hopefully it works with your Ibrahims. And thank you so much. Stand where you are.